Our subconscious minds are really protective of us, and they're not going to allow us to reveal anything we don't want to reveal. They're not going to allow us to take on some kind of behavior or habit that we don't want to have happen.
You're listening to the Ethos Athletes podcast, where we believe that your health is the number one resource you need to accomplish your dreams. My name is Dr. Matthew Hernandez, and I'm a physician dedicated to helping my patients maintain their active lifestyle and continue doing what they love. I'm sitting down with other experts so that we can provide our listeners with the knowledge they need to improve their health and live their best life. Hey everyone, this is Dr. Matthew Hernandez, and you're listening to the Ethos Athletes podcast. Today we are starting a new series. This series is going to be covering a subject that not a lot of people are familiar with, yet they've heard a lot about. The topic we're going to be discussing here is going to be hypnotherapy, how it can help you, what are some misconceptions behind it, and some expectations from doing treatments in hypnotherapy. For this particular series, we brought on a clinical hypnotherapist, Sherry Jackson, who is the owner of Envisage Wellbeing. So Sherry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm glad to be here.
Before we dive into what hypnotherapy is, let's go ahead and discuss how you got here. You have a really interesting story on how you got into being a clinical hypnotherapist and some of the other jobs that you held before you decided to go this route. Tell us a little bit about what you used to do and how you ended up coming into hypnotherapy.
Okay, yeah. Well, I started out my career in psychology. I was working in rehab clinic doing clinical research, and that was my career track at the time. I ended up moving to the States from Canada, and I ended up in the corporate world in banking for many years in bank management, which was really a far cry from what I thought I was going to be doing, but I loved it. And I used my psychology degree all the time to manage teams and help them to meet their goals. Then I got to that point where I was just one of those super type A kind of people, and I experienced burnout. I left the corporate world with the idea of just kind of taking a few months off, and it turned into this a little more esoteric journey where I was doing all these things that before I would have probably written off as a little out there. And we traveled around with shaman in South America and Thailand, and I took yoga classes, and we did all of these different things. And in that path, I also experienced hypnotherapy. And what I realized is I was doing that myself intuitively, and I fell in love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you went from managing teams at a bank, and the bank that you worked at is kind of one that big deal as well. I don't know if you want to tell people what bank that was.
Well, yes, I used to work at a Federal Reserve Bank.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay, kind of a big deal. You went from that, went through your journey, fell into hypnotherapy. Now, I have talked to people about hypnotherapy, and this is something that I've personally used, and I'll discuss that a little bit more later in the series. But I've personally used hypnotherapy, found it to be a great benefit, and I've recommended it for patients that I thought it would benefit from it. And there's times when I go and recommend it to a patient, and I kind of get like this skeptical look. My response is typically, okay, it's not what you think it is, but let's have a discussion around that. Can you describe what hypnotherapy is? And we'll go ahead and start off with that.
Okay, certainly. Hypnotherapy is really focused concentration. And it's the most natural thing that we can experience. We all experience hypnotherapy or hypnosis at least twice a day. At that moment when we're falling asleep at night, but we're not quite asleep, and that moment when we're waking up in the morning. Those are considered hypnotic states. Have you ever driven home from work and not remembered the drive?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's a form of hypnotherapy when we're really just in that zone, that focused concentration of doing. While you're driving home, you're thinking about a problem or planning a trip or doing something. Well, our subconscious mind, it knows what to do, and it just takes you home.
Hypnotherapy is focused concentration. Now, there's a lot of things that can be done with that. I think before we jump into what we can do with the power of focused concentration, let's talk about a little bit about the subconscious mind. It's a term that I think a lot of people have heard, they may not be super familiar with. Can you describe what you're talking about when you say subconscious mind?
Absolutely. Well, I like to think of the subconscious mind. It works very much the same way as our autonomic nervous system. And as you know, that is the part of us that regulates all of our physiology, our breathing, our heart rate, all of these things that we don't need any conscious awareness at all in order for them to function. Well, our subconscious mind is working in the exact same way. That's these programs that I like to think of them as programs that we start developing from the moment we're born. Everything that we experience is just downloaded into our subconscious mind. And so it knows all. And sometimes we lose connection with that. And so the subconscious mind is just this part of us that is this downloaded recording of every event, every thought, every feeling, every experience that we've ever had.
I think that's a really good way of thinking about it as a program. For listeners who are familiar with the books Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, those books and anything even with like Atomic Habits, that's another really good book. All of those are built around helping change your subconscious mind. And so in those books, they discuss how people have good habits. They perform those good habits because they know it's good for them. You compare that to someone who, let's take exercise, for instance, right? Now, a lot of our listeners are very active people, but you've come across individuals who know that exercise is good for them. They don't necessarily want to do it, and they don't know why they don't want to do it, right? That's the programming that they've come up with or that they've inherited through their subconscious mind on that aspect. When you're looking at change, you really want to look at how do you change that subconscious mind, that frame, that paradigm, whatever the word you use to describe that. And if you can change that, you can ultimately start changing some of these bigger aspects in your life, correct?
Absolutely. So that's exactly what we do is we look at those things that are blocking us from what we want. And we may not even know what that is, right? Because it's subconscious. But what we do with hypnotherapy is we really go after the blocks and then we reprogram ourselves for how we want to be, what we want to do, what we want to have. We get to design our life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the most beautiful thing with hypnotherapy. And again, going back to the definition of what we said that is focus concentration. There's a lot that can be done with focus concentration and really putting a lot of your energy into a unique problem that you're trying to solve. And so, with your guidance, your clients and myself included who've experienced this, are able to go and kind of hone in on a specific problem and really go and work through that. What are some of the practical applications that you've seen and you've been able to help people with on hypnosis? And we'll go into like some stories later on that, of some clients that you've really enjoyed helping. What do you see people typically come to you for when they're looking at using hypnosis or problems that they're trying to solve?
Right now, I'm seeing a lot of anxiety, different kinds of anxiety, but with all the things that are going on in life today, anxiety is one of the big issues that is coming up. And so sometimes that turns out symptoms like nail biting or not being able to sleep, all of those things, they're kind of related. Other things like bad habits that people have incorporated, like drinking a little bit more than they have in the past, or sometimes it's smoking, or it's something that they're doing that's getting in the way of what they want, some kind of habit, some kind of blockage. So those are some of the really high level things. And then a lot of times I'm seeing clients right now for wanting to perform at a higher level. So sometimes their self-esteem is getting in the way. And so we work on that. And the performance issues, we might start at looking at the performance issues. It might be a self-esteem issue, but together we figure it out.
Yeah, no, and that's perfect. When you talk to patients or clients that are, wanting to learn more about hypnotherapy, I'd imagine there's times when you can get the same look that I get where they're like, well, wait, what exactly is this? Is this like the whole, like, let me, dangle a watch in front of your face, stuff like that? What are some of the misconceptions that people have around this particular therapy?
Well, that's a great question. A lot of people do have this misconception. We see things in the TV shows and the movies that the hypnotherapist is in control. Well, that couldn't really actually be further from the truth because our subconscious minds are really protective of us, and they're not going to allow us to reveal anything we don't want to reveal. They're not going to allow us to take on some kind of behavior or habit that we don't want to have happen. I think in those instances, why that misconception is out there, we'll go to some event and there's the hypnotist that's an entertainer, and so we have this really highly trained hypnotist, and then we have these people that are in the audience that are putting up their hands. They want to go up on stage. Those people want to be on stage. That's the key part. They want it. I love hypnosis, but you'll never catch me on stage. It's just not in my personality to do that. But this great entertainer gives the illusion that they're in control, and these extroverted people are having a good time just letting go. And so it's the perfect marriage of two things coming together to lead this misconception.
I think that's a really important point to make on that aspect is so for people that, love being in control, or they're scared that they might, like you said, reveal something they're not ready for or something like that, or that they don't ever want to. Obviously, that's going to be important. That's going to be an obstacle for them to go in and talk. The fact that that's not actually an issue is obviously really good. You're always in control and you're not going to reveal anything that you don't necessarily want to by any means. What other obstacles have you seen people, or what other misconceptions have you seen people have with hypnotherapy?
Well, the idea that they're going to be stuck or, take on these suggestions that aren't in their moral compass.
Okay.
Again, that's not going to happen because
Right.
if that were true, then the hypnotherapist would be probably in charge of the world, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be a very powerful person.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And when I was taking my training, my husband said, I asked to do practice on him. And he's like, well, are you going to get me to do anything I don't want to do? And I was like, if I could, I would have already.
Yeah. Do the dishes a little bit more, take out the trash a little bit more.
Exactly.
Yeah. What else can I get? What else can I get out of this for sure? No, that's good. So going back to the, again, focus, concentration, and that being the primary aspect of hypnotherapy, the sessions itself, what does a typical session look like when someone's sitting down? I know, like for me personally, a lot of it's conversation, and then there might be like some guided imagery at the end, different things like that. What are some different routes that a session like that could look like?
Yeah, you're right. The conversation that we have is a really big part of it. I don't think a lot of clients even realize that there's so much power in that. And then there's this, the guided imagery part of it, which there's a lot of different techniques within any profession. But one of the things that I really like to use, especially to someone new to hypnotherapy, is I like to use relaxation. Now, relaxation is not hypnotherapy, but it is such a great gateway. It really allows us to be able to revisit that state and to really get the most that we can from it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much healing when we move out of that sympathetic nervous system, out of fight and flight, into the rest, relax, repair. And so by bringing the relaxation in with the hypnotherapy, it's just such a natural, easy transition.
Yeah.
You just feel great afterwards.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you really do like feel more refreshed. And I would agree with that aspect. When you're looking at typical sessions, I think we skipped a very important part to this, and that's the conversation piece. In my experience, at least, maybe every session's different, obviously, but in my experience, I go in, we have a conversation. And I think a lot of that is really just figuring out, like, there's questions you're asking that are allowing me to process different aspects, right? And like not only process something differently, or a problem differently, but understand it from different perspectives, understand different concepts around that problem. And I would imagine the goal or part of that is working to give me a better understanding of what's going on, so that when we do go into like the problem solving aspect, you're more efficient with how you do that. Is that correct?
That is so right on, Matt.
Okay.
Because one of the things that I do like to do is I will visit with all of my clients before they become clients for an hour. That is such a powerful time, because in between that time and when we meet, the subconscious is there with you and it starts doing its work. And so, yes, we're having this conversation. It's called conversational hypnosis.
Yeah.
And you're taking on and you're processing. And there's a little more conscious awareness there, which isn't necessary, but it really, when you can put all those things together, you're getting so much more than just a hypnosis session. You're getting all of these different aspects and really supercharging everything.
Yeah. I do feel like that is the end result every time I leave a session. It's funny, one of the things when I initially started looking or doing hypnosis or hypnotherapy in order to work through things, I started out with, okay, how can I figure out how to improve some of the relationships in my personal life with my girlfriend, with my family, with some friends, stuff like that. So how do we go about doing that aspect and working around either not that I like either something I was uncomfortable with, or just something that I think could have been better in the relationship. So how do you work around that piece? I'll still use it for that if a problem comes up. I'll use it for how do I have a conversation with, like, a difficult conversation with one of my team members here at our office, or a patient, or different things like that. And hypnotherapy appointments are the appointments I don't ever cancel, or like I always keep to those. So I schedule it every 6 to 8 weeks. Sometimes I go in, I don't have a problem to solve. Other times I have like 2 problems to solve or something like that. And to me, it's more of I've gotten to the point where I use it as a tool to help me improve different aspects of my life. I think the thing to that a lot of people need to understand is it's a tool, right? As opposed to always seeing you for a particular problem, use it as a tool to solve different problems that you have.
Right. Absolutely. So a lot of times the first time I meet someone, there's something going on, right? But there are people who just want to perform at a higher level in one area or many areas of their lives. And so, yeah, I have many clients that come on a regular basis and we'll start off talking and say, I don't really know. What are we going to work on today? Well, we start talking and my goodness, I'll tell you the things that we can uncover, and just those moments are amazing because it just naturally comes up because our subconscious is there and it's like, okay, here, you're ready now.
Yeah.
It's self-care.
Yeah.
It's
it
self-care.
really is.
It doesn't mean that you have some really deep, troubling issue. It just means you're a high performer.
Right.
All of the best CEOs in the world, all of the best athletes have someone who is guiding them through different parts of their lives.
Yeah.
And so that's what a high performer does.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think we'll go ahead and wrap up today's episode unless you have anything else you'd like to share.
This has been fantastic.
Awesome. Continuing in the series, we're going to dive more into looking into anxiety, stress, performance, different things like that. So we're going to have separate episodes on those. We're going to dive deeper into those, and Sherry's going to share some success stories during that. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We look forward to catching you on the next one, and thank you for listening.
Having issues with low energy and staying mentally sharp? Your hormones can play a role on how much energy and focus you have throughout the day. Our team at Ethos Integrative Medicine loves working with busy individuals who want to feel their absolute best and get the most out of life. Ask our team how you can get more information to learn about our unique approach to hormones so you can continue to take on the world.